News at gbnews.uk.
Thanks for being part of the GB News family.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Colin Brazier. I've reported from more than 70 countries around the world, covered wars from Afghanistan to Iraq, from Lebanon to the Balkans. I'm trying to bring that experience, that feel for events, to the studio. And something else, I'm ready to give an opinion. Today's stories with a spark. Brazier from 8 p.m. weekdays on GB News.
Hello there, happy Friday. It's 6 o'clock. I'm Michelle Dewberry and this is Dewbs & Co, the show where we'll be getting into the stories that have got you talking. Tonight, over 1,000 migrants crossed the Channel illegally in just one day. Is it time for us to follow people like Poland? Maybe declare a state of emergency? Follow what people like Australia have done? And COP26 has reached its scheduled end. Was it good cop or bad cop? And Austria issues a lockdown, but get this, it's only for the unvaccinated. Singapore has banned them from accessing healthcare. I wonder, why are so many people in favour of creating a two-tier society and pitting the vaccinated against the unvaccinated? We'll have that and more coming up, but first, the latest news headlines.
Hello, I'm Karen Roberts. These are your latest headlines. Alok Sharma says it's his sincere intention to end COP26 negotiations today, despite time running out. The Climate Summit's president said the draft of the agreement is not yet done. The latest version appears to back away from a call to phase out coal and fossil fuel subsidies completely. US Special Envoy for Climate John Kerry emphasised the need for decisions to be finalised.
We have to live up to the expectation of young people who don't want this place just to be a place of words. It has to be, in the next hours, a place of action. And if it is indeed existential, then we can't just say it is, we have to behave like it is.
1,185 people crossed the Channel in a single day yesterday, in a new record for the current migrant crisis. Rescue operations worked well into the night, with some of the 33 boats carrying up to 50 people. Yesterday's total surpassed the previous single-day record set earlier this month. The chair of Essex County Cricket Club has resigned over an allegation of racist language at a board meeting in 2017. John Farragut stepped down yesterday evening. He's denied any wrongdoing. The club says it will review why the incident was not fully and independently investigated at the time. The Prime Minister has warned the storm clouds are gathering over rising COVID cases in Europe. Coronavirus deaths rose by 10% across the continent in the past week, and the WHO have warned the region is back at the epicentre of the pandemic. The Netherlands is considering a 2-week lockdown to tackle rising cases, and Ireland will announce next week whether it will order people to work from home. Speaking at a vaccination centre today, Boris Johnson warned against rising cases ahead of winter and urged people to get the booster jab.
If you can get it, it's a great thing. The levels of protection it gives you are terrific. And so people over 50s that we're now calling forward, they should come and get it. What I'm also saying is that if we don't do it fast enough, we can see the potential risks to the state of the pandemic in what's happening in other parts of Europe.
Durham University has defended its decision to offer safety advice to support students who have become involved in sex work. Durham said the training was brought in following requests over the years by students and that they were acting responsibly by offering advice. However, Higher and Further Education Minister Michelle Donnellan said she was deeply concerned by the move. David Henderson, the businessman convicted over organising the flight that crashed and killed footballer Emiliano Sala, has been sentenced to 18 months in prison. The plane crashed into the English Channel in 2019, killing the striker and pilot David Ibbotson. Henderson's lawyer says his legal team will consider an appeal against his conviction. The Brexit minister says significant gaps still remain between the UK and the EU on Northern Ireland Protocol negotiations. Lord Frost admitted it remains the preference to find a mutual way forward. European Commissioner Maros Sefcovic said he welcomed a change in tone from the UK in today's talks and said Brussels was prepared to look at any issue within the protocol to reach an agreement. Talks next week will focus on the issues around medicines and customs. A student who admitted in a game of truth or dare to murdering his step-grandmother has been sentenced to life and will serve a minimum of 15 years. 21-year-old Tiernan Darnton told two friends that he had set a curtain on fire at 94-year-old Mary Gregory's bungalow in Lancashire. An inquest had previously ruled it was an accident caused by a discarded cigarette. Police reopened the case when Darnton also confessed during a counselling session. And former England midfielder Ron Flowers has died at the age of 87. He was a member of the 1966 World Cup winning squad. A statement from his former club, Wolves, described him as a giant on the pitch and a gentleman off it. Flowers was awarded an MBE in the 2021 New Year Honours List. Well, that's all your news for now. Let's get back to Dewbs & Co.
Thank you very much for that, Karen. I have to say, I love the way you say the title of the show, Dewbs & Co. I only wish that I sounded as sophisticated as that. I'm going to try and practice over the weekend. Anyway, with me on my panel this evening, Scarlett Maguire, former Labour advisor, and PR consultant Alex Dean, and Kevin Craig, founder and CEO of PR firm PLMR. Good evening to all of you.
Good evening.
Let's get, of course, I was so excited to get into my first topic that I almost forgot to tell you how you can get in touch. You know the drill by now anyway, don't you? If it matters to you, it matters to me. You can get in touch with me on email, gbviews@gbnews.uk. You can tweet me at Michelle Dewbs or at gbnews. But let's get straight into that top story. 1,185 migrants, or I have to say, as people are frantically emailing me, Michelle, stop calling them migrants, start calling them illegal immigrants. That's what my viewers are already saying, and we've only been on air a few minutes. There's quite a lot of sentiment, quite a lot of fury, I think, coming through the email already. But anyway, as I was saying, 1,185 was the number that crossed the English Channel yesterday. It marks the biggest small boat in session in a single day since the migrant crisis began. Our Home and Security Editor, Mark White, joins me with the latest. Good evening to you, Mark. What is going on?
Well, I should say, first of all, we use the term migrants as denoting really the movement of people, because there are just as many people who say, well, they're not illegal immigrants, they are asylum seekers. So before that process even begins, we use the term migrants to denote people who are moving. Yeah, and it gets a strong reaction because literally I've been on air just a couple of minutes and I've had multiple emails saying exactly that sentence. So there you go. Well, Mark. It does. It absolutely evokes strong emotions, and understandably. And yesterday, Michelle, it was a crazy day down in Dover Harbour. I was there all day long, and boat after boat was coming in, lifeboats, Border Force vessels. Border Force had 5 vessels out. The lifeboat service had 6 vessels out. And it's difficult for them. They're a volunteer service. So it's people who are having to take time off work to go and respond to these calls out in the channel, often back-to-back calls all day long, day after day. That becomes unsustainable. You have to be a very understanding boss if you're allowing your volunteer lifeboat employee to head out and do that. It's like the retained fire service, where you go out maybe every 3 or 4 days to serve your community, and bosses understand that you're there serving the community. But when they're doing this day after day, you have to be a pretty tolerant boss, I think, to really take that for a long period of time.
Yeah, and just, I mean, I think we all know the drill by now, what happens. But, you know, these people, they get onto the boats, they can do a variety of things, whether it's called 999, so that they're in distress, and they will then get picked up, brought to the UK, processed. What I think one of the things that creates a lot of fury is that they will be put up in hotels whilst their applications, etc., are being processed. They will be given legal aid to fight their corner in order to try and stay in this country. Of course, the bills for which are picked up by the taxpayer. And there is just a lot of frustration out there. I mean, certainly across my viewers, I know there'll be people that are also watching that say, well, hang on a second, there's no such thing as an illegal human being, and people should be able to come and go as they want. My reaction to that, Mark, is always that there are, you know, there's processes, legal routes and illegal routes. And one of the things that people are starting to look at more and more is what happened in Australia. They are, you know, they have a very tough zero policy to this, don't they? I mean, if I just show you a clip, this is from something called Operation Sovereign Borders. Let's just have a look what they do there.
Australia's borders are patrolled all day, every day. Our borders are stronger than ever. If you attempt an illegal boat journey to Australia, you will be intercepted, returned, and you will face the consequences. Don't waste your money and don't risk your life on a pointless journey. You will not make it here and you'll be banned for life. You have zero chance.
I mean, Mike, that's a campaign that they launched, I think it was about 2013, when they were seeing similar numbers, actually, about 20,000 in Australia. And there's controversial aspects to that policy, I'm not going to deny that. But many are saying that we should be adopting certain aspects of their policy.
Well, they've certainly been roundly condemned by human rights groups, but the Australian government are unapologetic. They say it's illegal activity, illegal incursions into their oceans and then, of course, onto their borders. And since implementing that policy, first of all, in 2001, it was reintroduced after having been paused for a number of years in 2013. They are getting very few, if any, small boats coming now to Australia because they're turned back, and they're told back effectively to the countries that they've come from, be that Indonesia or Vietnam, wherever. They have deals, they have cooperation between a lot of these countries to allow them to go back, and those where they don't have cooperation with and they have to process the people that are on these boats, they take them to islands off Australia. They'll take them to Nauru and places like that, and Papua New Guinea they have a deal with there to house them there while they process them. As I say, it's controversial, it's a tough approach, but it's something the Australian government says works, and they are unapologetic.
Yeah, I'm really keen to get my panel's thoughts, but before I do, before I let you go, just very briefly, Mark, just update us on the latest in Belarus, because I know now that UK military is over there and involved, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a very tense and dangerous situation on that border, and it's not just Poland, it is other EU states that border Belarus. So we're talking about Latvia and Lithuania, where they have also declared a state of emergency and brought troops to the border in increasing numbers as well. British troops are there in Poland at the moment, assisting in a capacity of its engineering troops to help them reinforce that border area. Of course, the UK, like other militaries that are part of NATO, have a commitment to these Eastern European countries. They are in Poland anyway. They're there to assist. But what that does, of course, it adds to the tension. We've seen the military in Russia, for instance, overflying the airspace between Belarus and Poland. There are Russian military on the ground there in Belarus as well. So a lot of room for something to escalate, hopes that it won't. But in the meantime, you've got all these people, 3,000 to 4,000 near the border with Poland. It's growing all the time. The Belarusians have shepherded them down to this border fence. And having done that, they're not letting them get back into Belarus. And of course, the Poles are not letting them get into the European Union, to their country. So they're stuck there in this no man's land. It's horrendous conditions out there. They've been there for a number of days, Michelle, and there's no end in sight to what, you know, this misery that these people are facing. As they get increasingly desperate, though, there is every chance that they will try to break over the border one way or another, either back to Belarus or to get into Poland.
Yeah, indeed. And we'll continue, of course, following that story and bring you any developments as they happen. But for now, Mark White, thank you for your time. Scarlett, let's bring it back closer to home, if we may. The Channel, we've just been hearing the numbers there. What's your thoughts?
I just think we have to remember how desperate these people are. I mean, I don't know, the thought of putting myself and my children, particularly if they're young, into an inflatable dinghy to cross the Channel in November is horrendous. These people are absolutely desperate. And instead of treating them sort of like vermin, I mean, I think we should think about what we should be doing.
Treating them like vermin? Hang on a minute. They get pretty much taxied over to the UK. They then get put into hotels.
Michelle,
they get given money to pocket money, some might say. That's not treated like them.
Michelle, they are not treated well. They were put up in barracks rather than hotels. They're not taxied in. They're rescued. That's why the RNLI do it. But these are absolutely desperate people. They're as desperate as the people on the Belarus border, where we feel incredibly sorry for those people. They're caught between the Poles and the Belarusians. Many of them will freeze to death. So these people are risking drowning. They drown. I mean, every day there is drowning. It's not that they're all safe, right? And I just think that actually what we need to do is, instead of thinking we're Fortress Britain, we want them out, is to go with the rest of the European Union and work out what we're going to do, because it's going to get worse, isn't it? I mean, these people are not thinking, oh well, I could have a good life. They are fleeing things, right? They're fleeing.
France.
What?
France.
They don't want to be in France. I mean, most of them...
Hang on, you've just said that they're absolutely desperate.
No, they are desperate to get to London because they can't... They're desperate to get to England. Most of them have family here, right? That's why they're trying to get here. That's why they're leaving France. That's why they're not in Germany, where lots of those people in Belarus are trying to get to Germany. I mean, it's 1,000. In Greece... They have tons and tons of people. I mean, thousands and thousands of people a day coming over from Turkey. These are desperate people. And what we should be doing is thinking, what do we do? What do we do as Europe? What do we do as the world? Because it's just going to get worse. And just to say, you know, put them on an island, send them back, it doesn't actually solve the problem.
Well, what do we do then, Alex Dean?
I think we take more people through the approved United Nations scheme, which places those who have legitimate claims to asylum or refugee status. And Britain's already one of the most generous countries in the world at that, and I applaud that. And if, in answer to the challenge we've just been given, we do more of that, then I would welcome it. But the people that we take through those schemes are people who are on the borders of displaced countries and in disputed territories. They're not people who've paid people smugglers to take them through an entire continent. And my response to what we've just heard is, if you are that desperate and if you are that afraid for your life, why wouldn't you seek asylum in France?
I've already said they're desperate coming. They're not seeking asylum in France because they want to get to they've mostly got family here. We don't...
I don't mean to be unfair. I agree with you that they are risking their lives and the lives of others in putting themselves in one of the busiest waterways in the world.
And
why would you do
what
that?
They've done to get to France.
France,
I mean, they are
a safe country, isn't it?
But having had, I mean, look, lots of them come from Iraq, they come from the Horn of Africa. They've had a long journey already. They've risked an awful lot. A lot of them have come, you know, have travelled across the Mediterranean. these are the people who want to get to England. Masses and masses of people who are leaving these very dangerous places actually want to get to Germany, want to get to France. We only see a tiny
I'm not trying to be unfair, and not rhetorical. What's wrong with France? Why wouldn't they stop? Why wouldn't they apply for asylum there?
Because they probably speak English and most of them have got family here. That's why they want to come.
That's not a good enough reason to be a refugee or an asylum seeker.
The problem is, of course, is that we don't have currently control of who's coming into the country. And so I think everyone around this panel is sympathetic to the human being side of the discussion. But one of the reasons, and I thought it was a disaster, but not for now, one of the reasons Brexit happened was that the people wanted controlled immigration, right? I think that was a fact of that debate. And so what we've now got is, you know, we're absolutely right that Scarlett said we take a fraction of those who go to France, a fraction of other countries, but British people, whatever their race, want to see that our borders are properly policed and controlled, like Alex said. And Michelle, the problem is it's a global thing, right? People want a better life. This is a fantastic country, but we've got to try and get to a system where the rules are followed, because that's what upsets people. And local authorities across the country they don't have the money to do it. So, I mean, we have to be a bit tougher on our processes without losing our humanity, I think.
Well, I'm going to take a quick break. I don't think we're going to solve this challenge on this panel right now. I've got so many emails. I mean, you guys are really flying in with your emails. Once we're in the break, I'll have a quick look and I'll be reading some out when we're back. And also when we're back at COP26, that conference draws to its official close. I wonder, was it a success? We'll look at that and more in just a few minutes.
You're watching GB News live across the UK and the world on our digital stream.
GB News is Britain's news channel.
We are the UK's home of discussion and debate from all perspectives.
We are here for you. Don't forget to join our YouTube community by clicking on that subscribe button.
And if you want the GB News app, you can click and catch up on programmes anytime.
We love to hear from you, so email us.
gbviews@gbnews.uk.
Thanks for being part of the GB News family.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Colin Brazier. I've reported from more than 70 countries around the world, covered wars from Afghanistan to Iraq, from Lebanon to the Balkans. I'm trying to bring that experience, that feel for events, to the studio. And something else. I'm ready to give an opinion. Today's stories with a spark. Brazier from 8 p.m. weekdays on GB News.
Hello there, welcome back. Now, COP26, that is, of course, the climate summit that's taken place in Glasgow. It's neared, well, pretty much gone now. 6 o'clock was its official end. Darren McCaffrey, our political editor, is there live in Glasgow now. Darren, COP26, did it achieve what it set out to do?
Well, we're going to find out, aren't we, Michelle? Negotiations are still ongoing. As you say, they were meant to have wrapped up, essentially, at this stage. But there is little sign that is going to happen today. In fact, it is in entirely possible that these negotiations will carry on into tomorrow, even the possibility they will extend into Sunday. At the moment, could it be judged as a success? Well, on the Boris Johnson kind of boundary or kind of platform for success, I don't think you can say at the moment it is a success, because looking at the draft resolutions, it looks like trying to keep this aspiration of capping global temperature increases to 1.5 degrees from what they were pre-industrialisation is not going to happen under the current plans. And that means that, frankly, it's not been, I would say, a great roaring success, but there has been progress in certain areas, but there are still outstanding details to be thrashed through. For example, we know that the US and the EU and others are resisting pledging more money, which Boris Johnson argues is badly needed to try and help mitigate some of the damages that climate change may well cause, and indeed to help developing countries try and offset their carbon emissions into the future. And also, additionally, there are some wrangling over fossil fuels, particularly around coal, how much that should be included in the final resolution. There's opposition, I think, from Saudi Arabia and Russia and others. So at the moment, it's not looking like it's ideal. Progress, though, has been made, and that will be jumped upon by some, but for others it will not be enough. And interestingly, in the last couple of minutes, we've had word from Downing Street that Boris Johnson has spoken to the Italian Prime Minister Mario Draghi, because of course the Italians are heavily involved in this process as well, and they say that they do want to see more progress on finance, and they will continue to work with their teams and other leaders to secure a positive outcome in the critical final hours of negotiations here in Glasgow. Though it is notable, isn't it, Michelle, the Prime Minister himself, Boris Johnson, is not here, having been here at the very start and a couple of days ago. You would have thought he would be here in the final couple of hours trying to push things through, but he's not turned up. Maybe a sign, as I say, that it's not making quite as much progress as he had hoped. In saying that, a final thought, which is, in the end, even though Boris Johnson and others argued this was the last minute to midnight, this incremental progress will be set in stone. It is progress, I think, to a large degree, and there will be talks again next year. This is simply another staging post on what will be a long process, as these climate change talks will go on for many, many years to come.
They will indeed. Dan McCaffrey, thanks for your update. Alex Dean, what are your thoughts on this?
I think government will feel that this has been a mixed bag of outcomes. On the one hand, I think Darren is right, that there's a sense of some progress. On the other hand, if you compare where we are now to where we were after the first week of the conference, when even some of the left-wing newspapers were saying, this is a coup for the government, this is a great success, look at the level of momentum that we've got behind commitments towards climate issues being addressed, I think they'll be quite disappointed. I think some of that disappointment was likely given the position of some of the world's biggest polluters like India and China going into this conference, and I think that there were some views amongst people in government, co-hosted Britain and Italy, but also in the United States, that they were going to change minds, and I think they haven't changed as many minds as they were expecting. But I think Darren's right, this is an incremental process, and they'll feel like they have made some way towards the kind of change that people who are responsible for this think we need to see. I think the starkest outcome, though, isn't between governments and the commitments they've made. It's between the people trying their best to make, in these difficult circumstances, some change, and the absolute advocates, the Greta Thunbergs of this world, who 1 week into the conference, with a week still to go, declared it to be a failure and said it was a global north, greenwashing and blah, blah, blah and so forth. When you make that kind of stand, I think, with a week still to go on a conference and you don't know the outcome yet, when you write it off like that, the biggest jamboree in the year attempting to make change, I think then you demonstrate that your commitment, your desire, isn't about climate change, it's about you. And it's about publicity. And that's where some of those eco-zealots like Greta Thunberg, who don't, by the way, go to India or China and demonstrate to the countries that are polluting the most.
I don't think they'd go very far if they tried to.
Exactly. It shows that they are most committed to their own cause rather than actually what's going to make a difference in this world, which is the slow, hard work, incremental efforts that are made, no matter how unfashionable it is, at conferences like COP.
Kevin, your thoughts?
Yeah, it's good news. I mean, it might, and I know it can get a bit overwhelming, a bit boring for you at times, Michelle. Right, the subject that let's be honest. But
I've got to be honest, it does.
Yeah, but
Sorry.
you with your family, you don't want the planet to carry on heating up. And actually, I'm with Alex. This was never going to be done overnight. More people are talking about this than ever before. There has been good coming together from America and China on this, and I'm an optimist. And I think we're moving in the right direction. They're going to get together in a year's time. There's 48 hours to go, and I think it's good that more people are talking more about the planet's condition than ever before. It won't be done overnight, but it's got to be a good thing, surely.
I just don't think they're taking it seriously, actually. I mean, on the one hand, it's 1 minute to midnight, it's really important. And on the other hand, well, we've got to have some coal and we've got to have some oil and we've got to have some of this. I mean, either it is serious and we need to actually stop mining coal, drilling for oil, etc., or we've got a bit of time.
But you know what the problem is, though? That our country, our economy, over many hundreds of years, benefited from polluting the environment. And other economies around the world, in some ways, they want their time. They don't want us to turn it off overnight.
Yeah, but
who are we to lecture?
Well, I'm talking about Australia, actually, and Saudi Arabia and very rich countries. I mean, one of the big problems, actually, about what hasn't happened is the development money, right? That was promised, and it was promised at Paris, and it hasn't happened, and now it's been put off again. So actually, if we are the polluters of the world, right, we should be paying for it. But I just think that all of this is about not taking it seriously. And actually, the thing about Greta Thunberg is she has got things moving. I don't think it's just about ego. I know you don't like her, Michelle, but it's
not that I don't like her. I think that the fact that she's a teenage girl and she's absolutely put on this pedestal. People, world leaders tripping over themselves to have an audience with Greta Thunberg. I just found it weird.
Well, but as Kevin said, more people are talking about it. And one of the reasons, I mean, Greta Thunberg actually got the young talking about it. And I think there's a real generation gap of the young feeling completely left out as the old go, well, no, I mean, the Australians are going to go on, they're going to go on mining coal. This isn't a developing country, right? This is a country that is wrecking the barrier reef, mining coal, pretending that it doesn't exist, when actually their country is in the firing line.
Well, I've got to say, I want to know your thoughts, but you're all still outraged by the story I've just done 5 minutes ago. I'm trying to find some love for your perspective, Scarlett, on my emails. I'm trying to find them. They're not coming through thick and fast yet, I've got to say. There's a lot of people upset, by the way, about the comment about barracks. What they're saying is, why
good
are you
enough
saying
for our
about
soldiers, weren't they?
Yeah, the barracks. I mean, I've had former serving personnel messaging me in saying, well, hang on a second. Why is this conversation coming up about barracks being awful when
these barracks were unfit for soldiers? I mean, when it went to court, they were found to be unfit for living in. That's what I'm talking about, barracks. And I just think barracks, as any soldier will tell you, is different from a hotel.
Well, there you go. That's Scarlett's response to the barracks thing. Let me know. Are you interested in what went on at COP? Are you pleased about the outcome? Do you think we should be doing more? Are you someone, when it comes to the climate, by the way, where you're sitting there and you're frightened about what is to come or not? I'm going to take a quick break and we'll be back in just a few minutes. Oh, we're not. I was going to take a quick break, but we're not. Instead, we're going to get on to one of my favourite subjects. Oh, sit comfortably. I've got a lot to say on this one, and I'm going to try not to speak for so long that we don't hear from you guys. Anyway, for decades, we've been told that discrimination is bad. Yet here we are in 2021, sleepwalking our way into a two-tiered society. One where one group is hailed as good, considerate and decent and allowed to live a full life, and the other vilified as stupid, selfish and denied the basics of being freely able to leave their own house, stay in their jobs, even receive healthcare. The distinction I refer to, of course, is the COVID vaccinated versus the COVID unvaccinated. I'll give you some examples. Austria is days away from placing just the unvaccinated into lockdown. Singapore have decided to restrict the free healthcare that the unvaccinated can receive. Here, of course, many of the unvaccinated have been forced to leave their jobs. And in parts of Australia, it's gotten so ridiculous that now unvaccinated folk must sit down to drink alcohol while the vaccinated can stand. And they'll allow the vaccinated to sing and dance while, you guessed it, the unvaccinated will have to watch from the sidelines. While all this is going on, we must remind ourselves, of course, of the simple fact that COVID vaccines do not stop the transmission of COVID. Now, come on. Whatever your vaccine status, we surely must all be united in our opposition to this medical apartheid. Told you.
No.
I had a lot to say. I had a rant. Go on, why not?
Because, Michelle, if you get vaccinated, your chances of getting seriously ill are less, and you cost the government less. Your chances of passing it on are less. Your chances of catching it are actually, all the studies now show, are reduced if you have the vaccine. So I'm with you on discrimination, but no way. You know, we should believe in a society where we reward responsibility. It's madness.
Hang on, how can you be with me on discrimination, which I assume you mean you're against discrimination?
Yeah.
So you're against discrimination. Well, then, full stop.
No,
surely you mustn't support any of these measures then.
Not when it comes to public health and the responsibilities of individuals to do the right thing in society. If you choose...
What about doing what you want to do with your own body?
Well, if you choose, and I'm not talking about for health reasons, but where does the responsibility of the state and an individual cross over? Is a government supposed to pay out more and more because people said, I don't want the vaccine because I think there's a chip in it, it's going to invade...
Pay out where? What?
Well, because if you get it and you refused the vaccine and you could have had it and you had no other underlying health issues, why should the state pay more?
You would withhold healthcare from people because they didn't have the vaccine?
No, what, knowingly? I mean, it has to stop somewhere. People who don't accept the vaccine when they could have it and then get it are costing the NHS more.
I don't need to be unfair, and I'm not. It's not a rhetorical question.
No.
I'm asking, would you withhold treatment from the NHS to someone who hadn't had the vaccine?
No, but what's happening here is that people are being asked to pay for it because their decisions, they actively decided to not take the vaccine.
Which is their right, by the way.
Yeah,
it is absolutely their right.
Well, do I have the right to take your cup of tea?
Well, of course you can if you want it. It's covered in my red lipstick. They might think it's a bit weird.
But I don't have
of course you have the right to take my cup of tea.
But
and I wouldn't, if you took my cup of tea, I wouldn't, you know,
I'm struggling to see why the tea is the same as not taking the vaccine.
Because right stops somewhere. Right? Do you?
Yes, it normally stops when my punch ends just an inch away from your nose. And the point about vaccine, as I understand it, contrary to your position, is that it makes it less likely that I go to hospital and less likely that I die. I'm, by the way, double vax. I'm not a conspiracy theorist or anything. I'm not an anti-vax, but I am anti-vaccine passports, and I am requiring people. I am anti-requiring people to behave differently. Your Austrian comparisons that you showed there, Michelle, to me, sent a shiver down my spine. I wondered if the Austrians would be sitting around the campfire saying to one another, "Are we the baddies?"
That's scaremongering, Alex.
No, it's not scaremongering at all. Because today you're treating people differently.
Let me read something to you, and I put it on the screen a minute ago. This is from the New South Wales government. This is what they say. So about singing and dancing indoors. Singing and dancing indoors is permitted for fully vaccinated people. Unvaccinated people must not sing or dance in indoor areas. Unvaccinated people must be seated to consume alcohol. It's on the screen. Alcohol may be consumed by fully vaccinated people who are not seated. I mean, excuse me. Excuse me. What? This has gone beyond scientific causes and effect. This is control, and this is wrong. Surely you must agree with that.
I do think Australia is completely over the top. I mean, given that this is a country that has had lockdowns like almost no other, apart from New Zealand, this is a country that was really, really slow on vaccinations. To then punish people for not getting vaccinated when many people haven't had the choice. I mean, this sounds completely balmy. But I mean, I do think the thing about being vaccinated is we have to think about other people. But the other thing, what I don't understand is that if you're not vaccinated and you get COVID, you will be much more sick and you are more likely to die. I mean, people with vaccinations are not dying of COVID. That's why I can't understand.
What? So you're telling me, where is your evidence of that? People with vaccinations
Fewer people.
So my question for you, given that we're talking about public policy, for both of you, would be, what would you now like us to do, given that you wish to differentiate between the vaccinated and not? Would you like them perhaps to wear some sort of symbol?
No, I'm not actually. What
are you on about?
No, hold on.
It's a simple question.
You
want to differentiate between...
Just a minute. All I said was, what I don't understand is that if you get COVID and 40,000 people are getting it a day at the moment. Okay, so there is masses of COVID out there. If you're vaxxed, as all of us are, actually you will probably get it quite mildly. If you're unvaxxed... I
understand your position.
And that's all I'm saying.
No offence.
That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying that there should be anything different.
God bless your willingness to answer, but it was the wrong person answering, because your position is you want to encourage people to get vaccinated. Your position is you want to differentiate in public policy between the way we treat the vaccinated and the unvaccinated. I was asking you, would you like them perhaps to wear a symbol?
Well, that I think is I think you're making allusions there to something slightly unsavoury. What I'm saying are the examples that Michelle raised are public policy scenarios where governments are asking individuals without medical reasons who decided not to get vaccinated, who then developed it, that they will have to contribute more because they actively took a decision that's costing the state money.
Yes.
It's about responsibility.
Kevin, I'm not making an allusion. I'm saying it to you directly. I'm not suggesting something unsavoury. I'm saying you are being unsavoury.
No.
You want to differentiate between the vaccinated and the unvaccinated in the way that we treat people.
No, well,
that is apartheid, isn't it?
No, it's not. It's not apartheid.
But actually, it's not. Let's talk about the reality in Britain. So, what do you feel about people, nurses, and carers in care homes?
I think over time we should be encouraging people to be vaccinated, but not require them to.
Because the problem is, I mean, I was talking to the head of a learning disability charity. She says that there are people that in their homes, and the parents, the relatives, actually don't want them looked after by somebody unvaxxed, and that is a serious problem.
One can argue by anecdote, and I might be able to find you somebody who says, I'd rather my carer, vaccinated or unvaccinated, was still there to care for my elderly loved one, rather than being fired and not being there to care at all.
Don't you think that the state should try and minimise the number of people getting seriously ill from COVID? Don't you think that the state should try and decrease the amount of money all of us are paying to deal with it?
Don't you think? 4 times.
I haven't ducked anything.
What do you want to do to
I'm saying I'm open
awful
to
unvaccinated people?
I'm saying well, you just called them that. I didn't call them awful people.
Well, answer his question then. What do you want? If someone's unvaccinated, what should happen to them?
Well, I don't see a problem with them being asked to with passports to go into venues so that we reduce spread.
You want their social life impacted, yeah? What else?
Well, it's not just about that. It's about stopping more people dying, right? And to go back to Alex's point, your example was a nation-state government saying to people, if you don't have a medical reason or underlying health reason for not getting the vaccine, and then you develop it, well, then, yes, we're going to ask you to pay more. Governments have used that sort of public policy response in loads of examples.
And what if they don't? You would withhold treatment?
Of course not.
Then what difference does it make, Kevin?
Well, because then you're hoping that more people will actually say, well, do you know what? Maybe it's a good idea to get vaccinated. I mean, what if you haven't...
But if they know you're bluffing, if you're going to treat them anyway, if they won't pay, then what difference does it make?
Well, you're
bluffing. You said, of course not.
Well, no. If we're not like America. If somebody hasn't got the means, in this theoretical example, you wouldn't let them suffer. But do we want to encourage people to get vaccinated or not?
Yeah,
you want to have a court order?
We want to encourage people to take the vaccine if it's the right thing for them. No problem.
Right.
But there's a line, or do you think that? I think there's a line. Do you think there's a line where encouragement becomes coercion, becomes wrong?
I don't think that it's reasonable to put it forward in the way that you were as a human rights issue about, I mean, God, if somebody hasn't had the vaccine and as a result their social life suffers a bit of restriction, so what?
You think that you can only have I can only have a glass of wine. Let's use me and wine as an example. So one can only have a glass of wine if you've had 1 vaccine, 2 vaccines, 3 vaccines, whatever the latest, 4 vaccines, 5 vaccines. I can only have a Pinot Grigio if I've had for vaccines if that's what the current rules are?
I want you to have a drink when you want, right? But as a society, we have to try and do everything we reasonably can to tackle this thing. And getting nudge theory, getting people to behave differently. We did it with cigarettes, you know, we do it with alcohol. It's not about being horrible to people, but surely we have to try and get everyone to be responsible and do their bit to get us out of it.
Well, there you go. Apparently, separating people, restricting rights from people, making people sit down while they drink as opposed to stand while they drink. That's not about being horrible to people. It's about keeping people safe. What do you think to that? Coming up after the break, how damaging do you think all these sleaze allegations have been to the Conservative Party and politics more generally?
On Mark Dolan tonight, my celebrity guest in Mark Meets is legendary actor Bruce Jones, famous for playing Les Battersby in Coronation Street. He's had drink problems, money problems, but he is the ultimate survivor and tells me his amazing story at 10. In The Clash, should we axe private schools? Can you de-radicalise extremists? And in my monologue, none of the COVID measures are about health. 3 hours of big opinions, big guests and big topics. See you at 9.
You're watching GB News live across the UK and the world on our digital stream.
GB News is Britain's news channel.
We are the UK's home of discussion and debate from all perspectives.
We are here for you. Don't forget to join our YouTube community by clicking on that subscribe button.
And if you want the GB News app, you can click and catch up on programmes anytime.
We love to hear from you, so email us.
gbviews@gbnews.uk.
Thanks for being part of the GB News family.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilized conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Colin Brazier. I've reported from more than 70 countries around the world, covered wars from Afghanistan to Iraq, from Lebanon to the Balkans. I'm trying to bring that experience, that feel for events, to the studio. And something else, I'm ready to give an opinion. Today's stories with a spark. Brazier from 8 p.m. weekdays on GB News.
Hello there, welcome back. The debates rumble on in the break, I can tell you. Moving on to our next topic, can we trust our politicians? I ask you this question, of course, because here we are coming towards the end of another week, which has been bursting at the seams, full of even more sleaze and corruption allegations. We've learned of the millions earned in second jobs, third jobs, fourth jobs in some cases. We've heard about rents being charged to the taxpayer for properties in cities where MPs already own property, and a whole lot besides. Boris Johnson has even had to announce in one of his speeches that the UK is not a corrupt country. Talk about embarrassing. Anyway, according to the Culture Minister, Nadine Dorries, the allegations won't hurt the Tories when it comes to election time, apparently. Scarlett?
Well, I don't think we call it Tory sleaze for nothing. I think as far as most people in the country are concerned, earning over 80,000 a year is quite enough. You do not need a second job. And when you look at Geoffrey Cox, who, of course, seems to spend part of the pandemic in the British Virgin Islands, actually for an enormous amount of money, but taking on the government. But then at home, he did the classic awful thing of renting out his own home and then charging the taxpayers for rent to pay his rent, and that is sleaze. And it might not
is
be
it unique to the Tories.
It might
Scarlett?
not. I have to say that if you look at what's going on, it is mostly Tory, right? The really
not true. I think that the Cox example, whilst I would not, were I to be an MP, I wouldn't behave the way that he has. It is an outlier and a pretty extreme one. And people talk about sniff tests, and for many people that went past the sniff test. More general kind of behaviour is not unique to any one party. The reason I think this doesn't get resolved anytime soon is that the leader of the Conservative Party has earned significantly in outside earnings whilst an MP. The leader of the Labour Party has earned significantly from outside earnings whilst an MP. And the leader of the Liberal Democrats has earned significantly from outside earnings.
How much does Keir Starmer earn?
You're kidding. Keir Starmer was a consultant to Mishcon de Reya and made tens of thousands of pounds.
Not tens of thousands, actually 25,000, and then he realised that it was wrong and he stopped it, right? And he hasn't done it since 2017.
What you're talking about is during his time as leader of the opposition, and that's true. But you will remember that he got tied in knots the other day, saying that he wasn't in talks about taking another significant job whilst he was a member of Parliament. He was in discussions, which is a semantic difference without a distinction without a difference.
Look, he stopped it in 2017.
No,
we're now in 2021, and it was 25,000. We all know that, and we all know that it's not very much. And actually, I don't think he should.
So your point isn't about the amount. Your point isn't about the behaviour. It's just about the amount.
No, what I'm actually talking about is things like Owen Paterson, who was a consultant for a firm and trying to change government policy.
So what was Keir Starmer a lawyer for, and what was he trying to do?
He wasn't doing it.
You don't know, do you?
He wasn't,
because he hasn't disclosed his clients. So how can you say that Paterson was wrong and Starmer was right?
Because it was for Mishcon de Reya. I mean, we know that what he was doing was he was consulting them.
One was legal work. Sorry, Scott. One was legal work that Keir Starmer did some of and then talked about doing more. Mishcon de Reya law firm. But who
was the client?
Hang on. Let's go. Michelle said...
Who was the client?
One second.
You say you know, so who was the client?
Well, it was a law firm. They don't disclose clients, but...
Oh, I see. That's OK, then.
Yeah, but you've
got to register where you disclose things, right?
Allow me to get back to the point, if I may. Michelle said... Well, I will if you just shut up for 1 second. Michelle said, has this damaged politics, right? The opinion polls, Michelle, are what we go by, right? And it was interesting what the Minister said there. Opinion polling shows Labour now has a 2-point lead over the Conservative Party. And I would say, to be fair to the Conservative Party, if they don't get a grip on this, over time a perception will form, right? Alex is doing his bit here to rally for the Tory cause, but even he must agree it's not been a great couple of weeks, predominantly for the Conservative Party, right?
It hasn't been a good. I don't think Alex is trying to desperately rally for the Tories, and I think that there is a blatant, simple point to be made here. Currently, right now, today, with the Tories in power, yes, the balance of who's been in the wrong is tipped towards the Tories, because that's because people want power and influence. If it was the Labour Party that were in power and the power and their influence sat with them, I suspect you might actually see the balance tipping over there. My point in all of this is, when we call it Tory sleaze and all the rest of it, it's not just the Tories that are doing this. This is a situation where we've got people that have been in power, and you'll all remember the expenses scandal. And I'm furious myself because I can't remember the person's name. You might remember, Alex. There was a Labour, it was a Lord. There was a Labour Lord, and he had to resign because of this whole kind of rent scandal when he was in power. I cannot remember his name, but it was fresh in my mind. It's gone.
Look, for the expenses, it was certainly on both sides, and I mean the more colourful ones were the moat cleaner and things like that, which were Tory, but it was certainly on both sides. But what's happened at the moment, and you're absolutely right. I mean, of course you want a Tory, because the Tory can talk to the government, will be listened to by ministers. It is terrible for politics. It is, I mean, most MP, I think all three of us, possibly four of us would agree, most members of Parliament are in there because actually they want to make Britain a better place. That's what motivates.
On that we agree.
Pay them more, Michelle. Pay MPs more. What about that?
You'll never pay them enough. I mean, Geoffrey Cox
150 a year, no second jobs.
Geoffrey Cox wants millions more. Right?
Well, then Jeffrey
Quite
can go and do the
clearly.
law. What about paying more, though? Paying more, no second jobs. Alex?
There you go. He reckons 150 grand for the MPs. What do you think, Alex?
I would pay
150
MPs
grand?
significantly more, but whilst we can agree on this panel, it's a very unpopular position in the country.
Yes.
Well, it's like, the head teacher, a man or woman doing an amazing job, right, in a big school. That's what 150k is, right?
The reason we get in this,
big
tangle,
job.
in our public conversation, we talk about X, Y, Z are paid more than the Prime Minister, never reflecting on the fact that our Prime Minister is paid too little, which is a position I can take because I'm not an elected politician. If you are, that's something you'll get pilloried for saying.
No, but the thing about Prime Ministers is the minute they stop being Prime Ministers, they earn an absolute fortune.
They don't have to. Gordon Brown doesn't. So there's a position from the left that's in favour of that.
Gordon Brown would not have asked for his money to be put up, and I don't believe
Tony Blair, on the other hand, has earned
Tony Blair
likes
his millions, and actually very quietly, John Major, David Cameron, not so quietly. Bad lobbyist, one has to say, how not to lobby. And even Theresa May is on the circuit doing massive... I mean, once you've been a Prime Minister, and that's apparently, I mean, the way the Conservatives get their Attorney Generals is they go, once you've been Attorney General, you really can charge the earth.
Well, I don't know. I mean, Dominic Grieve was a very successful lawyer before he was Attorney General. And for that matter, actually, so was Geoffrey Cox. So, to my mind, that's not how you get to be Attorney General, whilst, of course, you're right that it may help your earnings afterwards. As I understand it, it hasn't hurt Lord Goldsmith in his earnings at the bar either. But the point is that these people are successful advocates. Keir Starmer is a very good lawyer. And indeed, may I say, in the interest of fairness, I think he'd be a perfectly plausible candidate to be Prime Minister if his party were a bit more electable. He's just somebody who could earn a great deal outside of his current role.
The polls suggest he's getting there, Alex.
Well, and so we could rumble on. Steve, you have, Steve Flatman, you've emailed in, Lord Bassam. Is that how you say it? Bassam?
Bassam.
Yes, thank you. That is the person that I was thinking about, Labour's chief whip in the House of Lords who had to resign. Anyway, I was going to touch on a story. We've just been talking about salaries. I just realised the time, so I'm going to do it very briefly. Over in Finland, basically, there's been a new law allowing workers to check what their colleagues are earning if they think they've been discriminated against. I'm going to keep it simple, yes or no. Do you think we should follow suit in England, in the UK?
Very good idea. It would get rid of a lot of rubbish.
Yes or no? Yes or no?
No, nightmare.
No, nightmare.
Terrible idea.
Terrible idea. I tell you, if anyone asked me what I earn, guess what I'd say? None of your business. In fact, actually, if it was my boss listening, I'd say not enough. I need a pay rise. Anyway, that is it. It's all over for another day. Thank you so much. I've enjoyed tonight very much. Alex, Scarlett, Kevin, thank you, and thank you as well for your company. I've got 2 days off. Woo! So I'll be back on Wednesday. You have yourselves a wonderful weekend. I'll see you on Wednesday. Yeah, it's the weekend. Need I say more? Have a good one.
Hello again, the weekend is almost here, and for this weekend it's going to be a lot less windy than it was through Friday. Often quite cloudy, but for most of us it is looking dry. And that's because we've got this area of high pressure building in as we go through the weekend and settling our weather down across the UK. It keeps these weather fronts at bay and it brings much lighter winds. So there will be the risk of some mist and fog, I think, as we go through the mornings. But through the rest of this evening and overnight, some strong winds and some heavier rain to come for a short while across some parts of the North Midlands and northern England, but that tends to ease away. And then for many places, it is turning drier. We've got clear skies for Scotland and parts of Northern Ireland, so getting quite chilly in rural spots here, but staying fairly mild further south with a bit more cloud and breeze. So to start Saturday, bit of a grey, misty start across those southern areas, but we will see some brightness developing, I think, through the morning. Best of the sunshine through the day will be for Scotland, perhaps for Cumbria and also the east of Northern Ireland. Western areas, though, seeing the cloud thicken later on. And it will stay quite grey across East Anglia with a breeze coming in off the North Sea, so a cooler feeling day here, but elsewhere still fairly mild in that sunshine and feeling better with those lighter winds. But it's where we have the light winds and clear skies overnight that allows some of those mist and fog patches to form. So through the spine of the UK, we could see some fairly grey and misty conditions as we go through the early hours of Sunday. Cloudier out towards the east will mean that temperatures will hold up here, but out towards the west for Northern Ireland, Western Scotland, we see some outbreaks of rain mostly light and patchy. So as we start Remembrance Sunday then, for many of us it is going to start on a fairly grey and cloudy note, but we will see some brightness poking through during the morning, and that means that we will see some sunshine at times through the day, but staying wetter across the far northwest of Scotland and a few bits and pieces of rain possible elsewhere. It stays fairly grey and cloudy as we go into early next week, the best of the dry weather towards the south. Bye-bye.
You're watching GB News live across the UK and the world on our digital stream.
GB News is Britain's news channel.
We are the UK's home of discussion and debate from all perspectives.
We are here for you. Don't forget to join our YouTube community by clicking